Michael smoothed down his tie, a nervous flutter in his stomach. First day at Tech Connect, a titan of the IT world. He, Michael Peterson, was now a software engineer, his own cubicle, his own projects. Excitement thrummed through him. The open-plan office buzzed with morning energy, rows of desks, each with its own glowing computer screen. Michael found his cubicle, a wave of accomplishment washing over him. He arranged his lucky cactus, a gift from his sister. He joined the queue for coffee, a sea of unfamiliar faces. A laugh, deep and familiar, sent a jolt through him. No, it couldn't be. Could it? He turned slowly, dreading yet hoping. And there he was. The moment felt surreal, like a scene from a movie playing out in real life. Michael's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears. He had imagined this moment countless times, but now that it was happening, he felt unprepared. Leaning against a pillar, coffee cup in hand, was Daniel, the one who had left an indelible mark on his heart, the one who had been both a dream and a nightmare. Michael's mind raced with memories of their time together, the laughter, the secrets, and the unspoken words that lingered between them. The one from those stolen weekends, the one who never quite answered certain questions that had haunted Michael for years. Why had Daniel disappeared so suddenly? What had he been hiding? And why, of all places, was he here now, in Michael's office? The one he'd met on a whim through a dating app, a chance encounter that had turned his world upside down. They had connected instantly, their chemistry undeniable. But just as quickly as it had started, it had ended, leaving Michael with more questions than answers. Daniel's eyes met his, widening in disbelief. It was as if time had stopped, and the world around them ceased to exist. The office, the people, the noise all faded into the background. It was just the two of them, locked in a moment of recognition and shock. The coffee cup slipped from his grasp, splashing onto the floor. The sound of the cup hitting the ground brought Michael back to reality. He watched as the dark liquid spread across the floor, mirroring the chaos in his mind. All eyes turned to them. The office buzzed with whispers and curious glances. Michael could feel the weight of their stares, the unspoken questions hanging in the air. Who was this man, and why did he have such an effect on Michael? Michael wanted the floor to swallow him whole. The embarrassment was overwhelming, and he wished he could disappear. But there was no escaping this moment. He had to face it, face Daniel, and the unresolved past they shared. "Michael?" Daniel stammered, bending to mop up the spill. His voice was shaky, filled with a mix of surprise and uncertainty. Michael could see the same questions in Daniel's eyes, the same confusion and longing. His face was carefully blank, but his hand trembled. Michael's mind raced. What to do? Acknowledge him? Pretend they were strangers? The possibilities swirled in his head, each one more daunting than the last. He had to make a choice, and quickly. He opted for a strained smile. "Fancy meeting you here." The words felt hollow, but they were all he could manage. The tension between them was palpable, a mix of unresolved emotions and unspoken words. This was just the beginning of a conversation that had been years in the making. The workday became a minefield. Every accidental touch, every shared glance in a meeting was a jolt of fear and unwanted excitement. Michael couldn't concentrate on code, his mind replaying those stolen weekends with Daniel. He learned from hushed whispers that Daniel was a team leader, highly respected. Married, someone mentioned, showing pictures of a smiling woman and a golden retriever. Michael's heart sank. He avoided Daniel, his chest constricting with every near encounter. The once familiar office felt like a battleground. He just had to get through this, day by agonizing day. Section 4. A lunch break of truth. The inevitable confrontation happened on Wednesday. It was a day like any other, or so it seemed. The office buzzed with the usual hum of activity, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and the occasional murmur of conversation. Michael was at his desk, trying to decipher an error message when he felt a presence. He glanced up, his eyes meeting Daniel's, who stood there, his face etched with worry. Daniel stood there, his face etched with worry. It was clear that something was deeply troubling him, something that couldn't wait. "We need to talk," Daniel said, his voice low. Michael nodded, sensing the gravity of the situation. They both knew this conversation was long overdue. They snuck away to a nearby park, finding a bench beneath a weeping willow. The park was a sanctuary, a place where they could speak freely, away from the prying eyes of the office. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken truths. The rustling leaves and distant chirping of birds only seemed to amplify the tension. "I had no idea," Michael finally said, his voice hoarse. He had been blindsided by the revelation, and it took him a moment to process it. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Michael knew well. "I panicked," Daniel admitted, his voice tinged with regret. He had been carrying this burden for far too long. I didn't know how to explain. The words had been stuck in his throat, and now that they were out, he felt a strange mix of relief and fear. "I never meant for this to happen." Daniel's eyes were filled with sincerity, and Michael could see the weight of his friend's remorse. It was a moment of raw honesty, a lunch break that would change everything. Section 5. Finding a new normal. The conversation was painful, filled with recriminations and hurt, but also a strange sense of relief. The truth was out. They agreed that their relationship, whatever it was, had to end. "I can request a transfer," Daniel offered, his eyes filled with guilt. Michael surprised himself. "No, we both deserve to be here. We'll keep it professional at work." It wasn't easy. The first few weeks were strained, their interactions stiff and formal, but gradually the awkwardness eased. They found a way to coexist, their shared secret a strange bond. Section 6. The benefits of closure. They settled into a routine. Cordial greetings at the coffee machine, brief work-related conversations. No more stolen glances, no more lingering touches. It was strange seeing Daniel every day, knowing the intimacy they'd shared, yet being strangers. Michael threw himself into his work, finding solace in lines of code. He started going to the gym after work, shedding the weight of their secret. He realized he'd been holding on to the hope, however small, of a different outcome with Daniel. Now that hope was gone, replaced by a quiet acceptance. Section 7. Moving forward, together, and apart. Months later, Michael found himself laughing at a joke Daniel cracked during a meeting. It was a simple, light-hearted moment, but it carried a weight of its own. The laughter echoed in the room, a stark contrast to the tension that had once filled the same space. He looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and saw not a lover, but a colleague. It was a revelation, a shift in perspective that had taken months to solidify. The lines between personal and professional had blurred and then redefined themselves. There was a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if a burden had been lifted, a weight he hadn't even realized he was carrying. The office, once a battleground of emotions, now felt like a place of possibility. They weren't friends, not really. The camaraderie that once existed had been replaced by a professional respect. They worked side by side, their interactions limited to what was necessary for the job. Yet there was no animosity, no lingering resentment. But there was a newfound respect, a mutual understanding. They had both grown, both changed, and in that change, they found a new way to coexist. Their handshake was firm, their nods of agreement genuine. They had stumbled through a difficult situation and emerged, if not unscathed, then at least whole. The challenges they faced had forged a new dynamic, one built on resilience and mutual respect. They walked out of the meeting room with a sense of accomplishment, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had undertaken. Life, Michael realized, was full of unexpected twists and turns. Each day brought new challenges, new opportunities for growth. He found himself contemplating the future, not with dread, but with a cautious optimism. He was learning to navigate them, one line of code, one awkward encounter, one day at a time. Each keystroke, each interaction was a step forward, a move towards a new normal. The work was demanding, but it was also a source of solace, a constant in the midst of change. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The journey, the growth, the ability to move forward despite the challenges. Michael knew that the path ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face it, one day at a time, with a newfound sense of purpose and clarity.